Hello and welcome to Creaking Shelves 2019 edition. We're older now and much wiser, which is why we're sitting in this smart, luxurious space.
Also, why everything is grey.
And dire. This video we're going to be talking about our most anticipated games of 2019.
What, should we do 10 each?
Yeah, 5. Let's do 5. I can't be bothered.
Okay,
Yeah. That'll be more than enough.
Yeah.
Number 5.
Alright, my number 5 is a game that I'm hoping is going to come out in 2019, but honestly it's not been announced yet, so really this is all rumour, speculation, and a fair bit of hope.
Start. A good, firm, solid start.
I'm anticipating that Pandemic Legacy Season 3 might come out in 2019. If it's good enough for BGG's 2019 list, it's good enough for mine, goddammit! Right. Yeah, I've been a big fan of the Pandemic Legacy games. I've finished 1, we're working our way through 2 still, which means by the end of the year I'll be ready for another instalment. Although I've no idea, obviously it's not been announced, we know nothing about it other than it should be coming. So I've no idea what it's going to be like about, because I mean,
yeah, what's the
pandemics,
plot?
presumably.
Yeah.
But,
I was
like
shock twist, it's actually about shopping.
ooh.
Christmas shopping.
Oh God!
The Black Friday craze has spread.
Black Friday cubes. Yeah, okay. But yeah, because like the first one, obviously standard modern day pandemic.
Yeah.
And the second one was in this post-apocalyptic wasteland.
I guess you kind of don't want to know anything about it yet, do you? Because otherwise it might spoil the ending of Season 2.
Maybe, but they kind of set. I feel like they set the second one so far ahead in time of the first one, so that it's kind of they can just. It doesn't matter how your first campaign ended. Here's a second one. So maybe they'll do the same thing again, and we'll in a whole new future, maybe futuristic.
What I find interesting about the fact that you've chosen this, I find interesting is because legacy gaming is obviously a thing that's growing.
Yes.
There are more and more coming out all the time, but the one I always hear about is Pandemic.
It's still the best according to everyone's votes.
Yeah.
You know, people. That was the one that did best. I'm not sure if that's because it was new and there's kind of a bit of fatigue about it. Otherwise, kind of like you know, big campaigns are take a lot of effort, right?
Yeah, they do.
But we'll see. I'm still excited about them. So, Robin, what is your number 5?
My number 5 is a slightly, well, it might be obscure. I think it's another Kickstarter. I think it's a Kickstarter game. Solomon Kane. So I'm a fan of Solomon Kane. I like Solomon Kane. I like the stories. I haven't read them all, and I'm actually a defender of the film with James Purefoy from the mid-noughties. There is a film, and it's fun.
Put that on the background while you're playing it.
Yeah, exactly. For atmosphere, with all those West Country accents. But what's interesting about it is it's a cooperative game. It's heavily miniatures. It's kind of a dungeon crawler thing, but it's apparently very narrative driven. So you're playing through 3 of the Solomon Kane stories, but unlike the actual books, you've got potential multiple endings depending on what you do in the game.
Yep.
And what you do in the game is really interesting and sounds really different because you've got 4 players, I think.
Up to
4, I think. And each one of them plays as kind of a cardinal virtue of Solomon Kane. Rather than playing as a character, you control Solomon Kane, but different aspects of him.
Is that something that's come very much out of the stories? Because I know nothing about this character.
Yes, it has, but to be honest, I haven't read enough of the stories to know where exactly they got this idea from. So there's obviously lots of internal conflict going on with Solomon Kane, the character. So I think that's what they've done there. So I like that theme. Yeah. I like the way it plays. It'll be interesting to see how well it works 4 different people controlling the same character. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how it works. And I'm a sucker for pretty miniatures of monsters, as you'll find out in the rest of this video.
Speaking of, number 4!
Number 4. I should have just paid Eric Summerer to do this.
My number 4 is a very kind of complex, meaty Euro game by the name of Barrage. It's set in this kind of dark 1930s. I mean, the 1930s were pretty dark anyway.
Pretty dark.
But in an environmental sense. So this is a 1930s in which the Industrial Revolution went so crazy that they burnt through all the fossil fuels, and so they need to. You're playing as the industrialists who need to suddenly transform their kind of power generation over to hydroelectric dams. Okay, so that's the setting. But then, what's really interesting? There's a couple of mechanics to it that are really quite cool. So you've got this big board of like lakes and rivers running through this mountainous landscape, and so you're going to be building dams across those rivers, but that fundamentally changes how the water flows through the landscape, and so that affects everyone else's work
That's cool.
downstream,
Yeah.
which is really nice. I really like those kind of one person does something to a board and that changes everything kind of thing. Particularly after this year, I've got into brass quite heavily, which you'll see in Which is Greater in a few months, weeks' time. More of that kind of game, yes please.
That's great. There's a competitive kind of
strategy
absolutely type thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, I will build my dams to cut off the water supply to your dams and make you cry rivers of tears. Yep.
Always making me cry, Matt.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, my game is similarly kind of industrial in theme, in that it's U-Boat, the board game. Another Kickstarter, like you said. In fact, I think all my choices might be Kickstarter.
I think they all are from here on out. Let's just take that as read.
But see, I have this thing between us, obviously. I don't back Kickstarter anymore because I spent far too much money on it several years ago. So I swore myself off Kickstarter, but then U-Boat came along and I almost broke my promise to myself. Turns out I broke my promise to myself for another game, but we'll come on to that. But U-Boat's great. I mean, partly I love the film Das Boot, if you've ever seen that. You know, the tight claustrophobia. You've heard of Crimson Tide, you've heard of Hunt for October.
Yep.
I love that kind of claustrophobic atmosphere, and I love things like Battlestar Galactica where you're working together in a confined space. It's always cool. But this is you're in a submarine working together. And it's interesting that it's kind of thematically on the German side. A lot of games don't tend to look at that side of the First and Second World Wars. So I find that interesting, but mostly it's just a wonderfully asymmetrical game where you've got 4 players, each with a different rank in the ship's crew, and each with different player powers, and you're commanding different sections of the U-boat on the board, but you've also got this app to the side, which is driving the gameplay.
Okay.
But what you do, you interact with the board, but the app is kind of driving events, because that's where you look through the periscope and discover
nice!
Or another submarine goes by.
Like literally hold it up.
Yeah, I think that's what they've promised.
That would be good.
I hope that's actually what they've done. I think that's what
I didn't give a damn about that game until that.
Yeah. The main thing is that you've got like 3 games going on at once. You've got the app driving your overall objective.
Right.
And then you've got player cooperation with real-time cooperation.
Okay.
Saying, so the captain says, I need this. The other players have to do that.
Right,
and
so
the way
time phases.
Yeah, and the way they do that is worker placement within their own sections of the ship.
Huh.
So you've got this kind of like mini-game of worker placement to keep your section of the ship running smoothly.
Yep.
And then you've got the broader game of cooperating and doing the things that the other crew members need you to do. And then you've got this overall objective, which is the app.
That's the captain's problem.
The captain's problem, yeah. Exactly. And I think that could be really, really exciting. And as you can tell from my first 2 choices, I quite enjoy cooperative games. And unlike...
He's just a cooperative person.
I just like cooperating people.
This is why I can force him to do whatever I want.
Exactly.
What?
Because when we lose, you all lose with me.
Number 3. No more silly voices.
My number 3 is Wingspan from Stonemaier Games. It's a game all about birds. And flying, no?
Sounds thrilling.
Yep. Doesn't like birds. You're a monster, Robin. So, Stonemaier Games, obviously publisher of Scythe and Viticulture and other great games like that. Their new game, actually isn't on Kickstarter. I've already lied to you. I'm so sorry. I know, this is probably the only game that isn't going on Kickstarter.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Well done. Well done.
So, so it's a game about birds. You're building an aviary. And what's interesting about this, aside from the fact obviously Stonemaier Games. It looks incredible, which you can see right here. Isn't it lovely, Robin?
It's gorgeous.
It's
I mean,
gorgeous.
look
See,
at
look
that
at that. Right. This is a game that's being strangely compared to Terraforming Mars.
Oh, that's
yeah.
unexpected.
Not thematically, no.
Right,
But
okay.
mechanically, you've got that same thing of a big deck of cards, all different things, in this case all different species of bird, which all have their own little effects. And so you're drawing hands of these cards and playing the ones that you like the best, that fit best with what you're trying to do, out into a big tableau, which is your aviary. And as you do that, you're lining them up so there are 3 different regions. Either water birds go in the river, and other birds go in the trees. I don't know very much about birds. And each of those corresponds to an action, each of those regions. So you say, right, okay, so I'm going to draw cards, which means I look at my water region, and I draw a certain number of cards, and then trigger the abilities on all of the water birds that I've placed out there. And so as the game goes on, you end up triggering more and more powerful actions. You're looking for synergies, and yeah. And it's supposed to play in like an hour, I think,
Really?
as well.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so much more accessible than Terraforming Mars was. And yeah, much faster to play, much nicer to look at.
Yeah.
It's got little eggs.
See, I think people might be more excited about Wingspan than they are about my next choice, which is Atlantis Rising 2nd Edition.
Ooh.
Now, the first game came out 7 years ago. Not so well loved.
I was going to say, I don't know that I've heard of it.
See, I discovered it not too long ago, and I'm just like, oh, I really need to play this, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I'm really grateful. So I'm very grateful they bring out a 2nd edition. This is what I'm happy about. And I like games. I like it when games get a chance to improve themselves. And here's the thing about Atlantis Rising: it's a co-op game. Again, this one's been kickstarted again, but this one's kind of like almost like Forbidden Island with Focus, where you're on Atlantis, and of course it's sinking at random, but I think sinking from outside in, but you don't know where it's going to sink. And it's a worker placement game. And you're working, worker placement game where you're trying to find ways to save Atlantis by using your advanced technology to open a dimension, I think, so you can escape through it. So there's
just like in history.
Just like in history, yeah. So there's resource gathering, and there's a strong press your luck moment because it's based heavily on dice rolling.
Okay,
so it's about how far do you push it, and then of course there's collective decision making involved as well, because the island is sinking. And in the first edition you had pesky Athenians attacking your coast as well.
Pesky Athenians!
Yeah, all the time. So
I hate Athenians.
So you'd have to decide together whether to put your workers in your navy to fight off the Athenians,
right,
or whether just to gather resources.
Yep.
And of course the island is sinking, so if your workers are caught where the island sinks, they don't drown, but they have to swim back to shore, which basically loses you a turn. A bit of a depressing game otherwise. Whereas the 2nd edition has done away with the Athenians, and instead has...
A change for the better, I think we can all agree.
Yeah, I think so. Instead has, I think, Wrath of the Gods or Acts of Gods or something, which could be interesting. And then they've claimed the designers...
Which are all different effects type of thing, is it?
Powers,
Yeah. Okay.
And the designers have claimed to have boosted the efficacy of some of the upgrades and some of the cards that you can play. And the thing that I'm interested to see is the biggest criticism, I think, of the first game is that your resource gathering was based on dice rolling.
Right, so there's a bit too much luck.
Too much luck involved,
okay.
Right, so I'd be interested to see if they've improved that.
Yeah.
Because it's still dice rolling is in the game, and it's still a press your luck game. But if that's your one obvious criticism, I get excited at the opportunities some designers rarely get to improve their game.
Yeah.
And I think we'll see.
Yeah. It's nice to hear about like a proper press your luck system in a kind of cooperative game. Kind of makes sense, because if you start failing things, then that's just going to make you more desperate and more pushing your luck type of thing, which is good. Yeah, that fits. I like that.
Number 2, it's almost over.
So, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is chai.
As in tea?
As in no, it's chai, Robin.
Oh, sorry.
We're connoisseurs now.
Oh, yes. Chai.
Yes. Do you prefer rooibos or oolong?
I prefer a chai latte.
Is that right?
I
do. Yes, chai. Another recent Kickstarter. It's a much lighter game than some of my other choices, but there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
Like a nice, relaxing cup of tea. Yeah,
that's true.
You're making teas for people. What could be nicer than that? And it looks lovely. Like in terms of artwork, in terms of components. Yeah. What did catch my eye mechanically is there's this market system where you've got kind of three rows of tiles, which are all different types of tea. And as you take things out, they slide along. And when you take tea, you take blocks of adjacent matching ones, right? So you've got this thing where if these rows line up, they create opportunities for you to grab nice blocks of big sets of tea out of the market in one action type thing, which is it seems quite nice. A nice little thing on top of the kind of recipe mixing, set collecting-y type stuff that you're doing. In the background that we've kind of seen in other places before, but it looks just really pleasant, really nice.
Yeah, those types of games are great. Right, the best thing about them is that there's always a nice kind of sense of
fulfillment.
Fulfillment. Yeah, that's a good word for it. Yeah, it's good. Mine's possibly less fulfilling in that sense. Depending on how it goes, it's Murder on the Cosmic Express. I thought I'd go for something nice and light, similar to you, to break up this list.
But a bit more bloody and violent. Nice, pleasant cup of tea. Okay, good.
It's a social deduction game with a hidden murderer, a hidden detective, and you have to solve the mystery. It's kind of party game, which I think is nice. Again, moving not too big a shift from cooperative to party game. But
you just like people.
I like people. I do. This one though is not a Kickstarter game.
Whoa!
Found one. And it's good, but what really gets me though, is to do with it's bluffing, it's passing cards, but it claims it can be played in under 5 minutes, which I'm struggling to imagine how they do that in a social deduction game, because unless it's really easy,
it's not got that kind of
So how do you make it fun, challenging, but also short? Is my question over this claim of a 5 minute game. But
and is it too short? Is 5 minutes too short?
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 rooms in the boom, which can be very short or can be very long, depending on how you play them.
Yeah, I guess so. And One Night Ultimate Werewolf.
Yes.
Yeah. But even that's,
Yeah, but normally these games have a kind of structure which minimises the amount of time you play. So to have a game that is so unstructured it can be done and dusted so quickly, but also has a card passing system and an information gathering system, and clearly a role deducing system. I'm really intrigued to see how this works, but details are sparse, but the reviews so far are very positive. They're just not very detailed. So I don't know, I'm intrigued.
Cool.
Good bit of fun.
How much of it was the pun name?
I mean, that does appeal. And the kind of Art Deco 1920s art on the box as well. It's quite nice.
Ah, 1920s and space.
And space, yes.
Number 1, thank Christ.
So, number 1, Matt, what is your most anticipated game of 2019?
The game that I am so excited about.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Well, after that nice refreshing chai, I'm going to hit you hard with On Mars.
Oh.
A massive, heavy Euro game from probably the master of heavy Euro games.
Whoa.
You put that out there? Yeah. This is Vital Lacerda, whose work you might have heard of in The Gallerist and Lisboa, which I loved a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Yes, this will be his new game coming to Kickstarter in 2019.
Sorry. I thought we managed to avoid Kickstarter, but
no. It's back, and it's back with a vengeance. So yeah, On Mars. Oh, it looks good. It's you are all companies helping or building the first Martian colony. Right, so you're all there in this small colony complex together, but all very much competing. So like there's this cooperative theme to it, but definitely not mechanically. Yeah, so in the sense of we're all contributing to everything we build. We're building for the colony,
Hmm.
but like we get the recognition for that,
I see.
and I'm trying to build better than anyone else, so
Yeah.
that everyone knows that it was Matt who built this Martian colony. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and how that works out in the game is that, you know, I build things, and other players can use them, but I'm going to get a benefit when people use them, and of course there's a whole lot of, I imagine it's going to be quite challenging to get resources, being as we are on Mars. And in fact, one thing that's really quite cool is the thing that the designer's kind of been pushing when he's been describing this game is the kind of narrative arc that he's tried to put into the game. Of, you know, initially, you know, when you first set out there, you're heavily dependent on Earth for, you know, resources and materials being built, and you're shuttling things up between orbit and the surface and stuff like that. But then as the game goes on, if you do a decent job, you will eventually be self-reliant and, you know, you can completely ignore Earth and just get on and do your own thing. And that's really nice, yeah.
I love games that make you feel like you progress like that. That always feels good.
Yeah, and particularly, you always have, there's so many games where it's, oh yeah, I get better at doing the thing that I'm doing, but there's this actual, you have that feeling of actually stepping away from something that you've been reliant on previously.
Yeah.
That's quite cool.
Like growing up and moving away from home.
Yeah, yes. One day we'll do that. No. What is your number one game,
My
Robin?
number one game.
Yes.
I could talk about this
Pay
for
yourselves,
hours,
people.
hours. I will try to keep it short. It is a Kickstarter game. It was kickstarted last year. It is Hellboy, the board game.
Hell yeah, boy!
Yeah! Coming out in March, and I backed it. I broke my Kickstarter oath, and I backed it. And it's coming in March, and I'm so excited. So, I mean, I'm kind of cheating in that this is my number one game, partly because I'm definitely getting it. And it's also my number one game because it's just everything I want in a game. So it's cooperative, it's beautiful monster miniatures on a board, it's kind of dungeon explory where you reveal tiles as you go along, it's got a narrative to every single scenario, and it's Hellboy, and I'm a massive fan of Hellboy. I'm going to sound very hipsterish right now and say that I liked the comics before the movie came out.
Alright.
Okay? As it happens, I only started reading them because they announced they were making the movie, but that's
That doesn't count, that's still before!
So it's designed by, I think, James Hewitt, and he's did a great job with the Warhammer Quest games. So he's got pedigree, and he worked with Mike Mignola to sign off the design of this game and the approval of it. And it's exciting in that it's kind of, Solomon Kane might have placed higher on my list if it weren't for the fact that it shares a lot of similarities with Hellboy the board game, in that there's variable player powers, you're working together, but unlike Solomon Kane where you're each controlling an aspect of that one character, in this case you're playing different characters. And I backed the Kickstarter, obviously, so that means not only do I get the 4 characters in the base game, I'm getting another, I don't know, 12 or 13 characters. Although sadly, so far the rules don't support more than 4. It'll be interesting to see if I can break it by playing all 12 at once.
You get 15 people in, just everyone play at once.
It's not going to work.
That sounds like a living nightmare.
And each character has their own unique abilities, but there's also this interesting dice system he's got. So when you perform an action, you take a test, but there's different coloured dice which have different faces on them. Each one is custom.
Yeah.
And your character rolls a different colour of die depending on their ability, their skill level. So, you know, when Hellboy shoots his gun, he'll be rolling the dice with more 1s on. Right, to fail more. Whereas if he punches something with his big red fist, he'll be rolling the dice with more 3s on, so he'll succeed more. So it's a very, I'll be interested to see how that system works.
It sounds like pretty elegant, right?
It does sound, everyone who's played it online has said it's a very intuitive system. So we'll see, the other thing is it's got big, beautiful miniatures, like massive ones. And it's similar to Solomon Kane. You have scenarios, which are called case files, and they're sealed to begin with.
Here we go.
So you don't know exactly what's going to happen. There's a kind of narrative, but the whole thing is modular as well. So you've got an encounter deck, which is random, and it's so modular that one of the expansions, which I'm getting with the Kickstarter, is called BPRD Case Files. If you don't know, BPRD is the organisation that Hellboy works for. And what you have is a bunch of extra monsters which aren't in the main box.
Which all get mixed in.
Which get mixed in, and you can build your own scenarios.
Oh.
which is exciting, right?
Yeah.
And you've got so many pieces and so many cards that you could build. You know, even if you didn't repeat the cards, you could build another 3 or 4 scenarios. But if you mix them up, you've got an infinite number of scenarios, right? And they've said this is what they want to do with future expansions. They want to enable people to be able to build their own scenarios. And I can't think of another game. I'm sure it exists, but I can't think of another game which is actively encouraging people to design their own.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of games where the fans have made their own stuff afterwards, but actively pursuing that
and enabling
from
you
the
to do
start.
that. Yeah, it's great. I think it's really exciting.
If you can think of any, let us know.
Please do, yeah.
I can't off the top of my head.
Yeah, please do let us know, and let us know if you're excited for any of the games we mentioned in this video.
Yes. And what games you are excited about. Yeah.
Yeah, what is your top game of 2019?
Yes. Right. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you
made it this far
and still enjoyed it somehow, then make sure to subscribe to the channel and check out some of our other videos. We do wonderful board game comparisons.
We do indeed, and you can expect at least 1 or 2 of the games that we've mentioned in this video to feature in future comparison videos that we might make
in the future. And that's a wrap!
Number 1.
Oh, we haven't clapped yet.
Oh yeah.
Now we've clapped.
Okay,
Alright.
good. Keep that in. Funny, do you think we should do a follow-up video at the end of this year and see if any of these games measured up to our expectations?
I don't know.
No, let's not do that. Commit us to playing these games.
Yeah.